Louisiana, 1863, a slave named Peter is spending his final moments with his family, wife Dodienne and kids Betsy, Cyprian, and Laurette, before he is set to be moved to a new plantation in Clinton. Peter is forcibly removed from his home, but he fights the handlers so that he may return to his family. When one of the men turns a gun on Dodienne, Peter relents and is taken along with other slaves. Peter and other slaves arrive in Clinton, where they are put to work and endure endless abuse and discrimination. One slave, who had previously tried to run, John, is branded on his cheek. Peter talks about his faith in God, but John dismisses him because he states that there is no God for them to be in their current positions. Peter overhears that Lincoln's army is in Baton Rouge, and that many slaves are running in that direction for freedom. He devises an arrangement to get through the marshes to get away. When being forced to bury dead slaves in a ditch, Peter waits for explosions to go off so he may attack and kill the handlers. He and a few slaves start running toward the marsh, pursued by a gathering drove by Facile. One of the slaves, Tomas, is gone after by the controller's dogs. Facile tells Tomas he can go free in the event that he lets the men know where different slaves are going. At the point when he says stick rouge, Facile allows him to meander far enough into the marsh before he shoots Tomas and allows the gators to have what's left of him. Peter breaks up with different slaves and starts to make his own particular manner to opportunity, while Facile and his men proceed with their interest. Peter is spotted by a slave proprietor's kid girl and his men pursue him before he withdraws to the bog. He fends off a gator and watches out for his injury while he conceals in a tree. Facile and his men, joined by house slave Knowles, set up camp and cook a gator. Facile tells a tale about his life as a youngster where a female slave would deal with him and was cordial toward him. At the point when Facile requested that his dad welcome her to supper, his dad answered that giving slaves anything would prompt them taking what the men accepted they were qualified for. Back on the other estate, Dodienne is informed that the ranch's proprietor, Skipper Lyons, has offered her to another proprietor, and that she won't be taking her youngsters and should wed another man. Back on the other estate, Dodienne is informed that the ranch's proprietor, Skipper Lyons, has offered her to another proprietor, and that she won't be taking her youngsters and should wed another man. Peter keeps on giving his best for get-by, searching for food and water, and furthermore attempting to keep himself warm. He also uses onions to mask his scent from the slave owner's dogs. He runs into John and gives him onions to cover his fragrance also. At the point when Facile and his men draw near, John climbs a tree while Peter stows away. Facile shoots John down and decapitates him when he will not give up Peter's location. At night, Peter comes across a burned-down house where the family has been murdered. He tracks down a slave young lady and attempts to convey her to somewhere safe. However, she is seriously harmed and bites the dust in the wake of giving him a cross-neck band. A slave overseer shows up and endeavors to take Peter in, however he figures out how to shoot him, alongside Knowles. Prior to killing him, Peter tells Knowles he is the most awful sort of individual for supporting his victimizers. The following morning, Peter shows up at an oceanside loaded up with the groups of white men that kicked the bucket during the showdowns against Lincoln's military. Sadly, they have no arrangements for him to take. However, somewhere far off, Peter can see the boats and hear the guns that demonstrate Lincoln's men are close. Excited at the thought of finally reaching freedom, Peter begins running again. However, out of nowhere a pony shows up close by and he's pushed to the ground with a couple of hits. It's Facile, who offers Peter a portion of the meat he had requested back in the enclosure and requests that he ask. Since Peter will not comply, Facile takes out his weapon and reminds Peter he's his god, yet previously, he can pull the trigger. Another person shoots him first. Peter lets the falling body know that he's no god prior to going to meet his friends in need, who are Lincoln's local gatekeeper drove by Lieutenant 𝐓𝐚𝐿. Peter's body at last surrenders to fatigue and craving, so the fighters take him to the clinic. Tent on their camp in Mallet Rouge since his leg wound is tainted, the pious devotee nurture makes Peter res, and for a couple of days Peter just dreams about his loved ones. When Peter is feeling improved, he sees one of the warriors to get his new papers as a liberated person, in spite of the fact that he needs to make up some data he doesn't have the foggiest idea, similar to his age. Tragically, he isn't permitted to leave and look for his family yet. The white troopers are exploiting the reality the slaves are in fact. They can deal with the government homesteads or enlist in the military. Peter will not continue to follow orders, yet when the officer calls attention to that enlisting in the military can assist him with saving his family and be free for good, Peter acknowledges to join. Short time later, Peter finds the military has found Gordon as well, and he's stinging yet alive. Peter is happy to see him, yet it torments him to inform him concerning John. Then Peter goes to see 𝐓𝐚𝐿 for his uniform, yet first he's inquired as to whether he'd be keen on aiding the reason by modeling for something many refer to as a photo. Peter is vigilant, yet 𝐓𝐚𝐿 guarantees the white photographic artists are innocuous and their expectations great. It turns out these men are taking photos of the truth behind subjection to tell the world, and Peter consents to show his without any protection to the camera, uncovering the scars of many whippings. Then, Peter's taken to see the general, who gets some information about all the data he might have about the railroad, the adversary's structure. After Peter shares all the intel he has, the general gazes at his image and brings up that those scars equivalent rebellion, which is certainly not a decent quality to have in the military. 𝐚𝐤 attempts to remove Peter, yet Peter protects himself in any case, making sense of that those scars mean he's been pummeled ordinarily, yet he fought constantly, which is likewise significant for a trooper. At first light, 𝐚𝐤 takes Peter and every one of his troopers to the channels, where he reminds them they're battling for opportunity with a sincere discourse. Many warriors tumble to faux fire while they're actually walking, yet the gathering doesn't allow it to stop them and joins the battle decisively. Before long there's fire encompassing them all over, and Peter is hit by a blast, leaving him oblivious in a puddle for a couple of moments. When he awakens, sore body through the mud to continue to help, taking shots at the adversary whenever he gets the opportunity and offering favors for any withering friend he finds in the manner. 𝐚𝐤 falls in fight, and in the long run Peter tracks down an injured Gordon too. Seeing his companion in such a lot of agony and dread rouses him to emerge from his concealing spot to run toward foe lines. His expectations to stop the guns, and on account of the multitude of troopers that consider him to be a motivation and follow him. The local watchman overwhelms their adversaries and gets their triumph now that conflict's finished. The military visits each manor to free the slaves. When they show up at the house Peter used to work at, everyone stunned, not trusting the news, but rather joy before long assumes control over their temperament when they at last grasp opportunities truly subsequent to seeing his previous expert pass on in the possession of equity. Peter starts searching for his family, nearly having a breakdown when he can't track down them anyway. When he starts offering a request softly, he looks to his side. What's more, allows God to direct him to at last find his better half and children, who rush to him to meet him with an embrace. The photo of the genuine Peter turned into a famous piece of history and ventured to every part of the whole world, many times over in 1863 thanks to Lincoln's decree. North of 400,000 dark individuals disappeared to opportunity by 1865. Almost 4 million slaves in America were perceived as free.